You are crouched behind a pallet of canned beans in the frozen foods aisle when the smell hits you, coppery and sour, clinging to the air like a fog. The Costco, once a cathedral of consumer excess, is eerily silent now, save for the faint hum of flickering fluorescent lights and the occasional shuffle of feet dragging across the polished floor. You don't dare look, but you hear them. The low groans, the wet clicking of jaws, and the crowd of survivors you once trusted to keep you safe has turned feral, their whispers sharp and calculating as they stalk the aisles for prey. Your heart hammers in your chest, each beat echoing louder than the last, as you clutch the crowbar you pried from a broken shelf hours ago.
Here's your rewritten scene with enhanced tension, slow pacing, and strict adherence to your rules. Screams split the air, too sharp, too close. It wasn't the distant wail of sirens or the hollow shriek of metal twisting. This was wet human cut short. My shoulder hit the service door hard enough to rattle my teeth, the impact jolting down to my elbow. Cold seeped through my jacket where the metal pressed in. Behind me, Tom's sneakers skidded on linoleum, his breath coming in short, uneven bursts. Outside, engines growled and horns blared, but beneath it all, something thick and gurgling answered. Day one. Of course it's fucking day one. Tom's grip clamped onto my sleeve, fingers digging into the fabric. Scene 2. The stench of burnt circuitry and spilled motor oil clings to the air, thick enough to taste. I press my back against a toppled refrigerator, listening to the distant asterisk thud-thud-thud of bodies throwing themselves against the service door. Tom's hands shake as he unspools a roll of Ethernet cable, improvised tripwire. His voice is a whisper, frayed at the edges. Day one, and we're already treating a Costco like Fort Knox. I count the shelves between us and the door. 12. Enough space to run, not enough to hide. My fingers brush the respirator strapped to my face, filter at 70%, the numbers glaring in my head like a countdown. The sidearm weighs heavy in my waistband, one round left. Not for them, for us. Tom catches me staring and grimaces. You're not seriously considering. No, I cut him off, but the math doesn't stop. One bullet, two people. The service door groans under another impact. We barricade the electronics counter with flat-screen TV boxes, their polystyrene squeaking under our palms. Tom wedges a shattered laptop under a shelf leg, tilted just enough to see shadows moving under the door. Early warning system, he mutters. I don't tell him I can already hear the wet, clicking breaths from the other side. The emergency lights flicker, casting everything in corpse blue. My knee jostles a spilled bin of USB cables. They slither across the tile like black veins. Tom freezes. Did you? A muffled asterisk crack from the door, not wood, bone. He exhales through his teeth. Well, that's 30 seconds sooner than I hoped. I press the gun into his hand. Your turn to decide. The service door protested with a guttural groan as I forced it open, the hinges stiff and unyielding. The stench hit me like a wall, rotting meat mingling with the chemical bite of spilled detergent, a nauseating cocktail that clung to the back of my throat. Tom's flashlight flickered on, cutting a narrow beam through the oppressive dark. It illuminated stacks of pallets, their wooden frames sagging under the weight of forgotten cargo. And then the glint of steel, a knife pressed hard against Tom's throat. A girl stood behind him, early 20s, her greasy ponytail hanging limp, her eyes darting like a cornered animal. The air inside the Costco food court was thick with the sour tang of spoiled meat and the sickly sweet residue of spilled soy sauce, a smell that clung to the back of the throat like tar. My fingers ached from gripping the edge of the table, knuckles stiff from the cold seeping in through the broken windows. The wind whistled through the gaps, carrying with it the occasional scrape of metal against concrete, something shifting in the dark, something restless. Lena pressed a can of Monster Energy into my hand, her fingers brushing mine just long enough for me to feel the tremor in them. The aluminum was slick with condensation, lukewarm. Day 2, she muttered, voice frayed at the edges, and we're already running on fumes. I took a sip, the liquid burning like battery acid, the artificial sweetness a ghost of better days. Ella crouched beside us, rolling a dented can of peaches between her palms. The label was peeling, the syrup inside sloshing faintly. "You ever think about how many of these we smashed as kids?" She grinned, but the hollow look in her eyes betrayed the act. "Bet my mom's still got a case in her basement." Lena let out a dry laugh, and for a second the tension loosened, until Tom's shadow fell over the table, his respirator hissing like a punctured tire. "Fun's over," he said. His voice was flat, but the way his grip tightened on his rifle gave him away. "New group's got a guy with a crowbar and the situational awareness of a brick. They're eyeballing our respirators." He didn't need to say the rest. 70% filter left, one bullet between us, and a tripwire made of Ethernet cable wouldn't stop shit. Lena flicked the tab of her can, the sound sharp in the quiet. "So we trade filters for intel." "Or we ditch them," Tom countered. "They're dead weight." Ella's can stopped rolling. "We were dead weight yesterday." The fluorescence above buzzed, flickering like a dying pulse. I flexed my fingers, working feeling back into them, and weighed the options aloud. Option 1, trust strangers in a world where the last guy who just needed help tried to gnaw through my boot. Option 2, bolt and risk getting cornered near the freezers again. The memory of that cold meat locker air prickled across my skin, raising gooseflesh. Lena leaned in, her breath warm against my ear. Option 3, we let them think they're calling the shots. Right up until they're not. Tom let out a dry laugh. "Yeah, because playing 4D chess with a crowbar psycho always ends well." Ella's fingers tightened around the peaches. "They've got a kid with them." Silence. The kind that stretches too thin, the kind that gets people killed. Then the service door rattled, not the wind, not the dead, something alive and impatient. The radio hissed awake without warning, a jagged burst of static slicing through the stale office air. The sudden noise sent a jolt through me. My elbow jerked, tipping the half-finished can of Monster Energy. It wobbled, liquid sloshing against the rim before settling. The voice that followed was frayed, strained, like a man speaking through clenched teeth. "Any survivors? This is Redline Outpost. We have fortified supplies, medical aid. Grid coordinates follow." Then nothing, just the empty drone of dead air. Lena's fingers dug into the desk, her knuckles white. "That's 20 miles northeast, through the river valley." Jamal snorted, tossing his respirator onto the table. The filter read *70%*, but the plastic casing was cracked. Or it's a trap. Last safe zone turned out to be a goddamn meat locker. The office reeked sweat, rust, the spoiled sweetness of milk from the shattered fridge downstairs. My forearms ached, the skin scraped raw from dragging furniture, from piling desks and filing cabinets into makeshift barricades. Every movement pulled at the bruises along my ribs, a dull throb that never quite faded. Outside, something heavy dragged itself across the asphalt, metal shrieking against pavement in slow, deliberate rasps. The sound set my teeth on edge. Wind rattled the broken slats of the blinds, a low whistle threading through the gaps. Somewhere in the ceiling, water dripped, steady, relentless, a metronome counting down to nothing. "We stay, we starve," Lena said. "We go, we risk the horde bottlenecking us at the bridge." Jamal tapped his last round against the table. *1 live bullet *, a stupidly finite number. "Or we wait for the damn military to remember we exist." The radio crackled again, a mangled half-word, then silence. The quiet that followed was thick, suffocating. I stared at the tripwire across the door. An old Ethernet cable, its copper guts exposed, barely holding together. My stomach twisted, hunger gnawing at my insides like a living thing. The cold didn't help. It seeped through the cracked windows, settling into my bones until even my fingers felt stiff and clumsy. "If we go, we lose the high ground," I muttered. "If we stay, we're betting on a rescue that might not come." Lena exhaled sharply, her breath fogging in the chill. Day 3, and we're already down to *worst options. Then the lights flickered, once, twice. The generator's hum choked off mid-breath. Darkness crashed over us, absolute. From the hallway came the wet, rhythmic sound of teeth on meat. The air was thick with decay, a sickly sweet stench that clung to the back of my throat. My fingers trembled against the cold tile floor, numb from hours of stillness. The food court's fluorescent lights had long since flickered out, leaving only the pale glow of emergency exit signs casting jagged shadows across the overturned tables. My knees ached from crouching, my stomach gnawing at itself. 3 days of half rations turning hunger into a constant, gnawing companion. Day 3. Somewhere above us, a loose vent cover rattled in the wind, a metallic whisper that set my teeth on edge. Beneath it, the slow, irregular drip of water echoed like a ticking clock. Javier shifted beside me, his shoulder pressing into mine. His breath fogged in the chill, uneven. "Red line outpost," he murmured again, voice frayed. "We could make it before sundown." Priya's grip tightened on the respirator, its cracked filter hissing faintly with every exhale. "We're not ready," she said, low and sharp. "1 round left, 1. And this thing's barely holding together." A muscle in her jaw twitched. Outside, something scraped against asphalt, a shoe dragging maybe, or a rusted bumper shifting in the wind. Kara's breathing hitched beside me, too quick, too shallow. Her hands hadn't left her pockets since yesterday. The fabric of her jacket bunched around her wrists, hiding whatever she kept fidgeting with. I watched her sidelong, the way her gaze kept darting to the broken doors. "We can't stay here," she muttered. "They'll find us." The words slithered under my skin. I turned fully, catching the way her fingers twitched inside her pocket. A glint of metal peeked out just for a second. "What's in your pocket, Kara?" My voice was quiet, but it cut through the silence like glass. She froze. For a heartbeat, her face was blank. Then she smiled, too wide. "Nothing. Just a keepsake." Javier and Priya turned. Marcus, crouched by the tripwire, stiffened. "Show me," I said. Her fingers curled. The glint vanished. Javier's voice was a blade. "What the hell are you hiding?" Kara's smile dropped. Her hand jerked free, clutching the flare gun we'd scavenged from sporting goods, the one we'd agreed to save. Priya lunged too late. Kara twisted, firing the flare straight through the open doors. The explosion of light seared my vision, the hiss of burning phosphorus drowning out Priya's shout. Outside, the groans erupted, not scattered, not distant, a chorus rising from the parking lot's shadows. "You stupid!" Marcus grabbed for her, but she wrenched away, shoving him into a display stand. "I'm not dying here," she screamed, sprinting for the exit. Javier's grip locked around my arm. "They'll be inside in 90 seconds, he hissed. "What's the play?" Priya was already moving, stuffing the respirator into her pack with shaking hands. The tripwire wouldn't hold. The flare's glow painted the walls red, and in that light I saw them, shambling figures drawn to the brightness like moths. Kara was gone. The flare was burning, and we were out of time. Here's your rewritten scene, adhering to all enhancement rules while preserving dialogue and tension. The smell came first, rancid fat curdling in the heat, the sour tang of spoiled milk clinging to the back of my tongue. Then the noise, a wet, dragging shuffle from behind the pharmacy shelves, punctuated by the creak of weight settling on rotting floor tiles. Too close. My fingers twitched toward the empty holster. 1 bullet left, and the gun weighed less than my phone. "Day 4, Harper muttered, her shoulder blades digging into the food court counter's edge. "And we're debating which flavor of death tastes best." The tripwire sagged between 2 shelving units, a frayed Ethernet cable scavenged from the tech aisle. A joke of a barrier. The respirator's cracked plastic dug into my ribs, its filter clogged with dust and the stale aftertaste of fear. I wiped my palms on my jeans, the denim crusted with salt from evaporated sweat. "We go through the loading dock," I said, "or we die here." Javier's laugh was a dry rasp. "Loading dock's chained, saw it yesterday." "Then we cut through the freezer." Harper's voice didn't waver, but her fingers trembled as she adjusted her grip on the crowbar. Emergency exits on the far side. The freezer, a steel coffin if the generators failed. The others stared at me, their breath shallow. I cracked open the Monster Energy can, the syrupy burn of it coating my throat. 30 seconds to decide, freezer or fight. Javier hefted the fire extinguisher, his knuckles white. Fight with what? Hopes and dreams. The first one rounded the corner, its jaw unhinged, yellowed bone glistening under the flickering fluorescence. The tripwire snapped. It staggered, but two more pressed in behind it, their milky eyes reflecting the dim emergency lights. The stench rolled over us, thick enough to choke on. Freezer, I said. Move. We ran, sneakers skidding on spilled detergent, the soles sticking and pulling like tar. The freezer door loomed ahead, its handle frosted over, ice crystals spiderwebbing across the metal. Harper wrenched it open, and the cold hit like a punch, stealing the breath from my lungs. Behind us, the groan of the dead echoed off the tile. Then the lights cut out, blackness, the click of the latch engaging. Javier's voice, low and frayed. Emergency exits on the other side, through them. Them, the pallets of frozen meat, now shuddering. The things that used to wear orange vests. Harper's whisper barely carried over the dying hum of the compressors. We just locked ourselves in with them. Word count, 520. The Costco parking lot reeks of decay, a thick, clinging odor that seems to seep into everything, even the cracked asphalt underfoot. 4 days have passed since everything went wrong, and the air tastes like plastic and despair as I breathe through the respirator. Its filter is holding barely, but the casing has split along one side, letting in the faintest hint of rot with every inhale. The last radio message echoes in my head, a cruel mantra: Red Line Outpost, fortified supplies, medical aid. The coordinates taunt me from across the parking lot, a half-mile stretch of open ground crawling with things that were once people. My sidearm weighs heavy on my hip, its single round a reminder of how thin the line between survival and disaster has become. I crouch behind a gutted SUV, its windshield shattered into a spiderweb of fractures. The cold bites through my jacket, a persistent ache that settles into my joints. My stomach growls again, sharp and insistent, a reminder that 3 days of half rations aren't enough. The Monster Energy can in my pocket is warm, the last bit of sugary liquid clinging to the bottom. I could drink it now, let the caffeine sharpen my focus, or save it for when my hands tremble too much to hold the tripwire I rigged from Ethernet cables. Priorities, Ella. The food court's been picked clean, but deeper inside the store there's a pharmacy. Meds may be food. And shadows where the wet, shuffling sounds have been coming from for the past hour. The wind picks up, carrying the faint clatter of something metal rolling across the asphalt. It's distant, but the sound sets my teeth on edge. My fingers tighten around the tripwire, the rough texture of the cables digging into my palms. The respirator's crack widens with every breath, the plastic creaking faintly. 1 bullet, 1 chance. Option 1, bolt for red line. A straight shot across the parking lot, no cover, no room for mistakes. The open space is a kill box and I'd be a moving target. Option 2, scavenge the pharmacy. Higher risk, but if I find antibiotics, painkillers, hell, even a protein bar, it buys time. The tripwire might buy me seconds if something's already inside. I press my palm to the SUV's hood. The metal is still warm from a sun that feels like it's mocking us all. Day 4 and the world's still turning. Just not for everyone. A laugh bubbles up, sharp and bitter. I could really go for a Costco sample right about now. Then the sound comes again, wet, dragging steps, too close, not from the store, from behind the SUV. My muscles ache as I shift my weight, the cold settling deeper into my bones. The dragging noise grows louder, accompanied by a faint, guttural rasp. Whatever's out there, it's not alone. My hand drifts to the sidearm, the weight of it suddenly unbearable. 1 bullet, 1 chance. The wind shifts, carrying the stench of rot closer. My stomach twists, hunger and nausea warring for dominance. The monster energy compresses against my thigh, a reminder of the choices I don't have. The dragging steps pause, and for a moment the only sound is the drip of something wet hitting the asphalt. Then it starts again, closer this time. My breath fogs the inside of the respirator, the cracked plastic creaking softly with every exhale. I glance at the tripwire, the makeshift trap that might buy me seconds. The pharmacy looms ahead, its darkened entrance a promise and a threat. The dragging steps grow louder, accompanied by a low, rattling breath. My fingers tighten around the sidearm, the cold metal biting into my palm. Terrible choices, and I'm running out of time.